Welcome to the Literature Lounge, where writers and authors share their stories behind their stories.
So, why do you think filmmakers and streaming platforms are so drawn to your stories?
Well, I don't know how I cracked the code, but certainly I got lucky in the sense the first book became Slumdog Millionaire. The second book, Six Suspects, became The Great Indian Murder on Disney Hotstar. The third book has also been optioned for a film, and as we speak, the screenplay is being written, and then they are going to look around for a director. And there's a lot of interest in adapting the latest novel, The Girl with the Seven Lives, also for the screen.
Your writing career began with Q&A, right, which became an international bestseller. So, how did that story come to life, Vikas?
Now, I don't know whether you are aware of this or not. This was a scandal concerning a major in the British Army, a major called Major Charles Ingram. He appeared on the British edition of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and he won £1 million. So they reviewed the tapes and they discovered somebody in the audience was giving him the right answers through coded coughs. So that is what set me thinking. As a major in the British Army can be suspected of cheating, then why not set a story based on a quiz show in which the contestant would definitely be accused of cheating? So I conceived of the greatest game show in the universe called Who Will Win a Billion? Because again, through that novel, what I was trying to show is that the greatest teacher in the world is life itself.
So, your latest book, The Girl with the Seven Lives, takes readers through an intense journey. What inspired the story of Devi and her seven extraordinary lives?
So really the story of David was inspired by the women of India. You know how resilient they are, how hardworking they are, and how they manage to get back on their feet despite facing setbacks all the time. And I think, in a way, this book is a tribute to the resilience and the indomitable courage of the modern Indian women.
Hi, in today's episode, we have with us Vikas Swarup, a retired Indian diplomat and writer. He retired from the Indian Foreign Service as the Secretary at the Ministry of External Affairs, India on 30th June 2021, and has previously served as High Commissioner of India in Canada and has been the official spokesperson of the Ministry of External Affairs. He is best known as the author of the novel Q&A, which was adapted into the Oscar-winning film Slumdog Millionaire. Yes, you heard me right. His other works include Six Suspects, The Accidental Apprentice, and The Girl with the Seven Lives, 2024. He holds 4 honorary doctorates and remains an influential voice in literature and diplomacy. And I have to really think before I ask him all the questions, hoping that they're very, very intelligent. Welcome, Vikas, in today's episode.
Thank you, Mohua. Great to be on your show and look forward to our conversation.
So, your latest book, The Girl with the Seven Lives, takes readers through an intense journey. What inspired the story of Devi and her 7 extraordinary lives? Please tell us about that.
So really the story of David was inspired by the women of India. You know how resilient they are, how hardworking they are, and how they manage to get back on their feet despite facing setbacks all the time. And I think, in a way, this book is a tribute to the resilience and the indomitable courage of the modern Indian women.
Fantastic. That speaks so close to my heart because that's also a topic that, I write a lot about. So the story moves across diverse landscapes of India, from Delhi to Kerala to Goa. What was it like to weave these places into Devi's story?
So you see, I always say that India is the most complex country on the planet. The sheer level of, stratifications that we have of caste, of creed, of religion, of gender, so many things. And in my novels, I always try to render some of the complexity of India slightly more accessible. So one of the devices that I use in my novels is having a multi-layered narrative. Not having a single narrative, but having a multi-layered narrative in which my protagonist moves from place to place, and sometimes there are multiple protagonists as well, as happened in my novel Six Suspects, which was my second. So in this particular case, Devi, she has to move from place to place in an attempt on my part to capture some of the geographical diversity of India, but also on her part, to see if she can thrive and survive in all these challenging situations, because every time that she is moving to a new place, she is having to virtually reinvent herself from scratch. She cannot even use her previous name. She has to even adopt a new name, a completely new identity. So that was the challenge, that, I'm moving her from place to place. And I hope that the readers will be able to relate to her journey and to also see that in a way, her journey is very organic to the kind of character she is. It's not that I'm just parachuting her into a new situation all the time. it is always foreshadowed by what comes before, why she finds herself in this new place, in a totally new environment.
So, in The Girl with the Seven Lives, you highlight Devi's survival against incredible odds. Now, how does this character embody the resilience that you often portray in your novels?
Well, as I said, I consider the Indian woman to be one of the most resilient people on the planet. And in a way, Devi embodies those qualities. Uh, the problem is her life view, in a way, was shaped very early on by the kind of circumstances she finds herself in. She loses her entire family at the tender age of 8. At, at the age of 8, she's a complete orphan. And forget that she doesn't have a family. She doesn't even have a house. She's out on the streets, as it were. And she has to literally pull herself by her bootstraps and make a life for herself. So the point I'm trying to portray through her journey is that it doesn't matter where you are coming from. What matters is where you are going to. And Devi is always trying to go to a better place. A better place economically, a better place socially. That's, in a way, she also embodies aspirational India, because India, I think, is the most aspirational country on the planet.
Absolutely. So, in your book, Devi says that over the years, life has taught me 3 big lessons. There is no God, everything is chance. And take your chances when you get them. So, what do these words mean to you personally, and why did you give them to Devi? I mean, this is a very, very radical line.
Yes, it is. But look, at the end of the day, it is my character speaking. When we launched this book in Delhi with Veer Sanghvi, a very famous doctor who was in the audience, he stood up and he said, "So, Mr. Swarup, by saying that there is no God, you are proclaiming yourself to be an atheist." I said, "I'm not proclaiming myself to be an atheist, but my protagonist, Devi, is proclaiming herself to be an atheist because, it's her voice that is speaking." And I said, in contrast, look at my previous novel before this, The Accidental Apprentice, which is about a 23-year-old girl called Sapna Sinha, who is a very God-fearing person who goes to the Hanuman temple to pray every Friday. So then, in that case, was I a theist then and I became an atheist with the new novel? So for me, the important thing is I have to be true to the characters that I'm portraying. And as I mentioned to you in the answer to the previous question, Devi's worldview is formed at a very tender age. When she has lost her entire family, obviously, she is not going to be a great believer in God because, as she says, God does not exist for poor people. She is without a home, she's without a family, she's completely on her own. And naturally, she does not feel the protection, the benevolent protection of an omnipotent God beside her. And that's why she forms this worldview. So leave aside the God part. The second part of what she says, everything is chance, I think is very, very important. Because if you look at it, a lot of what we become is based on the accident of birth, which family you are born in, on which you have absolutely no control at all.
Absolutely.
Even the religion you are born into, you have absolutely no control over that at all. So chance is a very, very important aspect of our existence. And I think the third part of what she says, take your chances when you get them. I think that's also equally important, especially in today's cutthroat dog-eat-dog world, where, chances are scarce to come by, and there are lots of people competing for those same chances. So whoever gets that chance first and utilizes it emerges as the winner.
Fantastic. My God, you speak to my heart. There's another very powerful line from your book that says the most valuable thing in the world is not money, it's attention. How does this idea resonate with today's social media driven world where everybody's complaining about attention, attention, and more attention?
No, absolutely. I think in a way, this opening line of my novel is a reflection of today's society. 300 years ago, when we had the agricultural economy, the most valuable commodity was land. Then we transitioned to a manufacturing economy, and the most valuable commodity became labor, because labor was in short supply. Then we moved on to the communications revolution, and the most important commodity became information. But now, in the 21st century, we have a surfeit of information. We have so much information available with us that we do not know what to do with it. You just Google something. If I just Google Mohua Chinappa in Google, I don't know, I'm going to get probably 1 million hits. And I have to make sense of, which is the right link to follow, etc. And that is why in today's world, the most valuable commodity has become attention. And the social media companies, in fact, have mined this particular thing through their algorithms, which are designed to promote the maximum attention. And that's why what is happening in social media is that the most, what should I say, the most extreme points of view get the most traction because they garner the most attention. If you just remain middle of the road, you are just one of many, and your tweet or whatever does not go viral. But the moment you do something extreme, your tweet becomes viral, your post becomes viral. And today's world is unfortunately based on how viral you are and how many eyeballs you can garner and how much you can monetize that.
Yeah, but I don't think I would use the word unfortunate because there are so many people who are actually making a career out of it. And, for me, I think at the social media level, because that's where I rebooted my own career and started writing. So I think everything is fortunate and unfortunate the way we want to handle it. Do you agree with me on that, Vikas?
No, I think, if you look at the balance, my sense is social media has done more harm than, especially if you look at the kind of addiction it is promoting among youngsters. I mean, Australia has just passed a law trying to ban under 16-year-olds from using social media. Now, why would the lawmakers of that country have to take such an extreme step? Why are we every day talking about digital detoxification? Because I think social media has become very corrosive. Look at the number of young girls who feel bullied because of the kind of comments that people are directing at them on social media. Bulimia has happened because, people want to conform to a particular body image, which they see on social media. So, and then I'm not even talking about the election meddling and other political interferences that have happened through social media. So certainly, social media, I think, started off as a tool to empower everyone.
Yes.
I mean, Justin Bieber would never have made it without the era of social media because he was discovered through YouTube. So now we have cut out the middleman, we have cut out the gatekeepers, and people have a voice. Everybody has a voice. They have their own platforms. They can make themselves heard. But on the con side, there is so much happening now that people are trying to make sense of it, and fake news is proliferating at such an extent that I have been forced to say that the most dangerous people in the world today are not terrorists, but are graduates from the University of WhatsApp, who believe on every nonsense forward that comes to them, and they start forwarding it to 20 other people. And as you know, people have been lynched on suspicion that, a black car is traveling with people who are going to be abducting children. And people have been lynched. Somebody who was traveling in a black car was stopped and they were lynched just on the suspicion which circulated through social media. So I think we have to be very, very cautious. Social media, of course, is a double-edged sword. But as in my personal opinion, I think it is currently doing more harm.
Now we need to come to the most important question. Your writing career began with Q&A, right? Which became an international bestseller. We're really talking big here. So how did that story come to life, Vikas?
So look, I call myself an accidental writer because I never thought I could be a writer. I was always a reader. It was only when I was posted in London, and this happened between 2000 and 2003, that the writing bug sort of bit me. There were two inspirations. One was being in the city of London itself, where all the publishers, all the agents are located. And secondly, many of my contemporaries in the Foreign Service had started writing fiction. So they acted as an inspiration to me. And I thought to myself, do I have a story inside? And around that time, there was a big scandal in Britain. Now, I don't know whether you are aware of this or not. This was a scandal concerning a major in the British Army, a major called Major Charles Ingram. He appeared on the British edition of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and he won £1 million. He answered all the questions correctly, and he was given £1 million. But the producers suspected that something was not quite right about his performance. So they reviewed the tapes, and they discovered that on some of the questions on which he was stumbling, somebody in the audience was giving him the right answers through coded cops. In the sense, when the answer was B, there would be 2 cops. When the answer was D, there would be 4 cops. So he was arrested, the £1 million was taken away from him, and eventually he received a 2-year suspended prison sentence. So that is what set me thinking. I said, if a major in the British Army, somebody as well respected as a major in the British Army, can be suspected of cheating, then why not set a story based on a quiz show in which the contestant would definitely be accused of cheating? So I conceived of the greatest game show in the universe called Who Will Win a Billion. Obviously, I could not use Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. They would have sued me because it was their copyright. But my contestant is an 18-year-old waiter called Ram Muhammad Thomas, who appears on this greatest quiz show on earth. And they invite him thinking, there is no way he can answer even 2 or 3 questions. But he answers all the questions correctly. Because again, through that novel, what I was trying to show is that the greatest teacher in the world is life itself. And those of us, who go through a very hard life, those hardships really condition you, not just to answer questions on the quiz show, but the questions to the difficult challenges of life itself.
Agree. Agree wholeheartedly with you. So why do you think filmmakers and streaming platforms are so drawn to your stories? I mean, what makes them adaptable to visual formats? And I think all writers, including me, are dying to know, how did you crack the code?
Well, I don't know how I cracked the code, but certainly I got lucky in the sense the first book became Slumdog Millionaire. The second book, Six Suspects, became The Great Indian Murder on Disney Hotstar. The third book has also been optioned for a film. And as we speak, the screenplay is being written, and then they are going to look around for a director. And there's a lot of interest in adapting the latest novel, The Girl with the Seven Lives, also for the screen. So I've been lucky, but what most people tell me, especially filmmakers who have adapted my work, they tell me that I write in a very visual kind of way. And that's true in the sense that when I'm writing, I am first visualizing that scene in my head. So I'm seeing it playing out, like on a cinema screen, but inside my head. And then I write from that perspective. So as a result, when you are reading what I have written, then you can also visualize that same scene, which I had seen when I was writing. And that is why when you want to translate what I wrote into another medium, then I suppose it becomes more easy, or let's say easier than compared to a writer, who does not write in a visual way, where I think you have to make that extra step to make that transition.
So yeah, those were golden words for all of us who are, trying to work with, trying to get up books to be taken into the audio-visual format. So do you think visual media like films and series has overshadowed the written word? And do you believe that books retain unique advantages even now?
Oh, absolutely. I think there is no doubt that the image has overtaken the word, but the problem with the image is that the image is one-way transmission. Why do you think we call the television the idiot box? Because it's just beaming at you and you are a passive recipient of what is beamed at you. You do not have any agency. But when you read the words on a page, you read those words, then you visualize those words in your head, and then you move on to the next sentence. And that is something that gives you the greatest pleasure, because when you're reading a Harry Potter book, for instance, you can visualize yourself as Harry Potter. I mean, that's the beauty of the written word, that when you imagine those words in your head, you can put on any filters that you want. So obviously, a young boy reading Harry Potter can visualize himself as that Harry Potter boy, with his face, probably with those round glasses. But the problem is, once the film comes in, then, that space for creative visualization is lost. Daniel Radcliffe is Harry Potter. There is no way you can insert yourself into that scene. And that's why I think books will always be much more richer. I think they allow you to ideate, they create, they convey the ideas that are needed for our civilization. In fact, books, in a way, are a repository of our civilization. Not to say that films cannot inspire you. Of course, films can also inspire you, and films can inspire you in a much more visceral way. But I think, the problem when you adapt a book into a film is, a book is that much more richer, because a book has so many so many other elements. It has the interior monologue, it has the side plots. A film is in your face. It is going from A to B to C to D, whereas a book can go from A to N, N to L, L to Z. All those creative possibilities exist within the realm of books, which do not exist within the realm of films. But then, of course, films are the ultimate mass medium, and they tend to influence a much bigger body of people.
Yeah. What kind of a writer do you consider yourself to be, and how has your approach to storytelling evolved over the years? So tell us that.
I consider myself to be a storyteller primarily, more than a writer. In fact, and I think I have created my own genre, which I call social thrillers.
Yeah.
In the sense that, the normal thriller, which we call the airport thriller, is an entirely plot-driven device. The plot is everything. And once the plot is revealed, you throw away the novel, because the characters don't stay with you. The kind of books I write, I think, are books which have a strong thriller element, in the sense it's an engaging, entertaining narrative. But allied to that, I try to create characters which are multi-layered, which have a conscience. And more importantly, I also try to bring in a lot of social commentary. So when you read my first book, Slumdog Millionaire, apart from a very thrilling narrative of how this boy knows what he knows, you also got a peek into Indian society.
Yeah.
You got a peek into life in the chawls, life in the slums. You got a peek into the Bedia tribal girls who are sold into prostitution by members of their own family, for instance, which is real. So again, similarly, in the latest novel, I have covered a lot of aspects, again, allied to the thrilling narrative of Devi's life. So again, you have the life in the slum, but you also have what is the fake degree racket all about, what goes on in a godman's ashram, this online scams that are proliferating every day, and every day we are seeing, especially older people being gypped out of their life savings. The menace that this online scams are creating. All these, in a way, I have touched upon in the new book as well.
So what would you say are the common threads that run through all your novels? Is there a recurring theme or message that you always aim to explore? What would that be?
I would say, I think that broad messages of ordinary people thrust into extraordinary situations. So I do not write about, very high and mighty people. I write about ordinary people, but somehow or the other, circumstances manage to put them into extraordinary situations. For instance, in Six Suspects, I write about a mobile phone thief called Munna Mobile, who's just a very humble person, who lives in the outhouse of a temple with his mother and who steals mobile phones for a living. But then one day, through that mobile phone that he has stolen, he manages to get hold of a suitcase, a briefcase filled with money. And that changes his life, how that changes his life and what happens to him after that. So similarly, in the latest book, let's talk about the third book first, The Accidental Apprentice, about a 23-year-old girl called Sapna Sinha, who's a very bright girl. She wanted to be an IAS officer, but then her father died and she was forced to take care of the family as being the eldest daughter. And now she's a sales girl in an electronics boutique in Connaught Place in New Delhi, selling TVs and fridges and washing machines. But every Friday she goes to this temple, as I mentioned earlier, to pray to goddess Durga, who's her favorite goddess. And one Friday afternoon, as she's stepping out of the temple, she's accosted by India's, I think, 8th richest man, who makes her an amazing offer. I want to make you the CEO of my $10 billion company, provided you pass 7 tests from the textbook of life. So again, how her life transforms by this extraordinary offer. She is an ordinary, humble sales assistant, and now she's dreaming of becoming the CEO of India's 8th largest company. And similarly, in the latest novel also, Devi, a very ordinary person, but thrust into extraordinary situations because of the kind of circumstances she finds herself in, and how she wants to make the best of any situation that she finds herself in. In fact, the novel opens with she is being kidnapped. Now she's being held in a dingy basement by a masked gunman who's threatening to shoot her dead unless she confesses to all the crimes that he's accusing her of. So in a sense, the stakes are much higher in this novel than they were in any previous novel.
So who are your favorite authors and what kind of books have had a very significant impact in your life?
So I started off really by reading a lot of Indian fiction in Hindi, my mother tongue. I read all the major Indian writers, and hailing from Allahabad, which was the hub for the world of Hindi language publishing. In fact, it's the center of Hari Boli, as we say. So all the top writers of India, Mahadevi Verma, Suryakanti Tripathi Nirala, Harvansh Rai Bachchan, Firaq Gorakhpuri, they're all from Allahabad. And I read most of their works. I had, at that point in time, not read too many Indian writers in English. It was only when I was writing my own novel and I was writing in English that I said, let me first find out what do Indian writers write about, because I wanted to write a thriller. So I went to the bookstore, the library in Golders Green in London, where I was posted at that time. And I asked the librarian, I said, give me the best thriller books by Indian writers. And she looked at me very blankly and said, thriller books by Indian writers? I said, yes. She says, I can't think of a single one. I said, what do you mean? She says, I don't think any Indian writers have written thrillers. So I said, well, tell me, what have Indian writers written? And then she gave me books by Vikram Seth and Arundhati Roy and Pankaj Mishra and Manil Suri and Raja Rao and Kushwant Singh and all these people. And that's how I realized that what Indian writing in English is all about. And I discovered that all of them had written books about society. So I did not want to write just about society. I also wanted to write in a very thrilling kind of way. So that's why I married these two genres. And I created this own genre called social thrillers.
Amazing, amazing. What advice would you like to tell writers, who are looking to tell meaningful stories, and for young readers, where they can cultivate a lifelong love for books? Because I think that's also, considering the digital age and our capacity to really concentrate is really reducing every day. So, what would you tell them?
So the first and foremost advice I give to people who want to be writers is that please read. Because these days I've met so-called aspiring writers. When I ask them, have you read Fitzgerald? They looked at me blankly. Who's Fitzgerald? Have you read Kafka? Have you read Murakami? Have you read, forget these Western writers, have you read Indian writers? Have you read Vikram Seth? Have you read Arundhati Roy? And they have not read any one of them. And yet they aspire to be writers. And I said, that's not possible. Because only when you have done reading, then you will learn to appreciate what is good writing and what is bad writing. And then only you can follow in the footsteps of good writers. So the first advice is be a good reader. And once you have imbibed, the wisdom from all the top writers of the day, then I think you can sit down and start creating your own thing. And there my advice would be, try to tell a story that no one has told before. Because if you are derivative, you are just repeating a story that you have heard somewhere else, then it will not be a great story. But if you are creating something totally original, something which only you can tell, then I think that will be a story that will resonate with other readers. And then the third advice is that once you have decided on the story, you have to sit down and write it. I have met so many writers who say, Vikas sir, I started this novel, but after 6 months, I'm just not able to finish it. And that's the real problem, because you see, in a novel, there has to be a complete character arc. Your character is not at the end what the character was at the beginning. There is a progression. It's either a coming of age story or whatever. But there is a change in the character from the beginning till the end. And you have to frame out that entire arc in your head before you sit down to write. The other important thing is you have to retain that same level of enthusiasm about the project that you had when you first began. Of course, that enthusiasm will wane, but that does not mean that you should give up. You should give up only if you really feel that, okay, this book is not going anywhere at all. And I think that happens with every writer, even very seasoned writers, that when you start writing, there are a lot of self-doubts. Till I reach what I call the point of no return, that you decide, no, this is a good book, which even if one person reads it, I'm going to write it. And that's when you sit down and you really finish it.
What's next for you? Are there any upcoming projects that you can share with us? Perhaps another book?
Well, yes, certainly. Look, all I can promise is the next book will not take 11 years. This one took 11 years, not because I took 11 years to write it, but simply because I was just so busy in my day job as a diplomat that I just did not find the time and the space to start creating. So certainly the next project will be much shorter compared to the time frame. But what is this going to be, I am not fully decided. On the one hand, of course, I'm drawn to fiction, which has been my forte for these 4 novels. But I'm also drawn to non-fiction. I mean, don't forget, I was a diplomat for 35 years. And geopolitics is also a great love of mine. So that is also drawing me in. Plus, because of my strong views on social media, I'm also toying with a book on the impact of social media. That is also there in my head.
You're giving away ideas, because tell us.
No, as I said, these are all in the formative stages. I let a number of ideas germinate in my head till I decide on which idea I'm going to pursue next. Because, as a writer yourself, you would know this. This is the most important step for a writer, what you do next. Because if you take a wrong step, then maybe 6-7 months are wasted, and then you realize, no, that idea was not worth it. So you have to be very, very strategic about what you're going to do next, and you have to be fully committed. So I'm in the phase where I'm still toying with various ideas. I'm not fully committed to that one idea yet, and that's why I cannot give you a better answer at this point in time.
But all your answers are so amazing. So tell me something. Do you prefer to write your draft by hand, or do you work directly on the computer?
So I do not have writer's block, but I have writer's cramp, in the sense that this is something that developed when I was in my BA in Allahabad University. And in fact, I flunked my psychology paper because suddenly this writer's cramp occurred. And when I'm holding a pen, my right hand just starts cramping up completely. And as a result of this, even when I'm signing checks, the bank sometimes say, sorry, sir, your signature is not matching. So it's a huge problem for me. And because of this reason, I do not write my novels at all. I type my novels. And I type with, both hands, and it's not a very fast pace, but in a way, I enjoy it because in the process of typing itself, the ideas can germinate and fructify. So I enjoy that. So I'm definitely not a writer. I don't use my pen. I use my keyboard.
Late at night or early in the morning?
100% early in the morning. I'm not a late night person at all. For me, the golden hour for writing is 5:30 to around 9 o'clock, because at that time the world is asleep. My phone is not ringing, and I'm at peace. And that's when I think I'm the most creative.
Most impactful diplomatic posting?
Look, all my postings have been very good, but in terms of
We don't want a very diplomatically correct answer. We want
exactly. Mohua, I'll give you a very correct answer, because you asked for the most impactful. Then the most impactful was certainly Canada, because Canada was the only posting where I was High Commissioner. And as High Commissioner, I was the top dog. I was setting the agenda. I was not following anybody else's agenda. So obviously, you can make much more impact when you are setting the agenda yourself.
Thank you so much, Vikas, for being in today's episode. We wish you luck. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me on your show, Mohua. It was a pleasure speaking to you.